All right, everyone, we're going to get started. It's a pretty light agenda this month. The first thing on the agenda is the approval of the May minutes. Does anyone have any edits to make to that?
I just have a comment on the third page on the fifth paragraph when we are discussing the postponement of the State Wetland Bureau application. And it says a motion made by Shepherd and seconded by Blasco. I may have done that, but I had also recused myself from that application, so I'm not sure if I was the one who actually seconded or not. I didn't get a chance to watch the video.
So we'll double check and change if that's the case.
Yeah.
Any other comments or edits? Yeah, Barbara.
I just want to say they're very thorough, and
Yes.
it's kind of nice. And I'm like, did I really say that? That sounds so eloquent.
Is that how I said it? Yeah.
It's very good.
All right, would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept the minutes with the noted comments from the May minutes, or for the May minutes.
Okay, motion made by Jessica. Do we have a second?
I can second it.
Okay, second by Lynn. Ready for a vote? All in favor?
One abstain.
Recusing, or abstain, yep, and one abstain. Oliver. Okay. Moving right along. We have wetland conditional use permit application for 218 Griffin Road. Is someone here to speak to that?
Good afternoon, Drew Olechowski with Haley Ward, representing the applicant CCB Incorporated. So I recognize a few of you from the site walk last week, but just to dive right into a quick overview of the project. So you can see here we are proposing some improvements to the existing FedEx distribution facility at 218 Griffin Road. FedEx is in the process of upgrading their facilities throughout the site. One of the changes they are proposing to make is their methods of loading packages into the delivery trucks. Their new scheme for doing that is to add what they're calling a mobile loading dock. It's essentially a mobile trailer that they plan to back up to the building. That trailer has a series of bays in it, which the delivery trucks then back up into. So you can see that on our drawing, the blue hatch we have over on the right side of the building. The dark square represents the mobile trailer, and the blue represents the new concrete pad that is added in support of that trailer. There will be the large trucks parked there for periods of time, which is why they just wanted something more durable than the current asphalt that's there now, which is why we're proposing concrete. So again, that pad is located entirely on existing paved area. There is no new disturbance associated with this project. It's all limited to previously disturbed areas. The area of that pad is approximately, I believe it was 3,000 square feet or just under that. So again, no changes to drainage or schemes of handling existing runoff from this area. So we think it's a pretty straightforward process. As you can see on the right side of the plan, there are a series of wetlands adjacent to our site. These are not prime wetlands, but there is a prime wetland that begins further to the southeast. However, we are still within the 100-foot buffer associated with those wetlands, which is why we prepared a conditional use permit, wetlands conditional use permit for planning board review, which is the purpose of our attendance at this meeting today. So again, I think it's a fairly straightforward process, but I'd be happy to hear any comments or concerns that the board might have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jessica.
I apologize I couldn't make the site walk, but you said, can you just tell me a little bit about what happens with the water now since that wetland sits over there?
Sure. So the finger of wetland that you see along the edge of the parking area, we believe that's an existing treatment swale that was installed when this facility was first constructed. Water currently sheets off of our parking lot to the southeast, so into that swale, and then it continues along to the southeast to the larger wetland complex. So that'll be continuing under the proposed conditions as well.
Got it. And there was no discussion of trying to shift that at all to do anything with that water before it just sheets off into the wetland?
There wasn't, no, because again, this is all existing paved area and not creating any new areas, so we weren't required to do any treatment of new developed areas.
Okay.
have a question. When you take up the asphalt, is that like a one-day process when you put the concrete, lay the concrete? Like, is it all gonna be open and closed in one day?
So the first thing they'll do is saw cut the existing pavement,
Yeah.
mark out that square where the concrete's going to go. They'll excavate some of the sub-base material just to put in a thin layer of new flattened out area for that concrete to be level. And then, yeah, they'll point the concrete on top of that. They probably could do it in one day. I don't have that construction schedule yet. I would say at most it's 2 days. First day is to prep it, the second day is to pour.
Yeah. My only concern is if it's open and there tends to be like a rainstorm or whatever, is there gonna be any like silty runoff from what's underneath the asphalt before that's all like closed up? I don't know. I don't recall it being like that pitched, but I don't know what the elevation change or the grade is there.
Yeah, that area was fairly flat. It didn't really get steep until you went further to the northeast
Okay.
corner of the site.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect any significant runoff as a result of this.
Okay.
And again, there's going to be that saw cut where there'll be, 4 inches of pavement, so it's almost like a little hole where the
Yeah.
gravel is. So even if it does rain, I would assume that runoff is contained to that
Okay.
existing low point.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Barbara.
At the site walk, we were, this is disclosure, you mentioned something to city staff about pulling back on your application, just having this application. Are you planning on doing something in the future, or is this sort of the better example of that application?
So this is what we're moving forward with now. What I mentioned at the sidewalk was potentially more trailer parking spaces, which would be up at the northeast corner of the parking lot. So those would be even further away from the existing wetlands. Again, as of right now, we're not proposing those. We just knew there were a lot more permitting hurdles to jump through if we did have to do that. So FedEx is very interested in getting just this piece done quickly. So at this time, we're not proposing that. But if we do, we would obviously come back through the whole review process for any additions.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Do you have anything, Kate, from the staff memo mentioned wetland boundary markers, right? Missing your
Yeah, I
staff
think,
memo.
Drew, you just kind of addressed a couple of the items that were in the staff memo. It sounds like that area is a temporary impact area, and I was wondering if, it's possible to state on the plan, like temporary versus permanent impacts. If there's anything outside of that saw cut zone, that might be a temporary impact we could note.
Okay.
And we talked in the field on the site walk about stamping the wetland delineation, making sure that's signed by the certified wetland scientist. I was also wondering if it's possible to put the 25-foot wetland buffer line on here, just for our knowledge. And it sounds like sediment controls like silt sock probably isn't relevant in that saw cut area anymore, which was my fourth kind of stipulation. But also wetland boundary markers is what we usually put on with every application. We require that the wetland boundary be demarcated with signage. We sell the placards that say sensitive wetland area. I think we were thinking every 50 feet along that new chain link fence that's being proposed might be the best place for that.
Yep, we can add that to the plan, no problem.
Great.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as it goes for best management practices, stormwater ones, at least for construction, if you guys are saw cutting and digging up some of the area, is that going to be stored on site when you're doing it? Is it going directly into a roll-off or something?
Yeah, I assume they'll have a dump truck on site and put all the waste right in there and haul it off site. Again, it's not a huge area, so that should be easily done in one truckload.
Yeah, is that anywhere in the plan saying that? Because it would be good to at least have that with Jess's question about stormwater and where it runs now, then in addition to that, the roof runoff could be catching some of it, and so there might be a fair amount of water coming off the site.
Sure. Yeah, I can add a note saying that no exposed material will be stored on site.
Yeah, and in addition to that, that the area will be swept clean of any debris afterwards, if that's not in there.
Yep, that's not a problem. I can add that.
And then one follow-up? The regular stormwater, the pre-construction stormwater, no, post, if you guys are not doing anything to change where it runs, do you, as far as maintenance, do you know if they sweep that area on a regular basis, or I have a feeling you probably don't, with somebody.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Just to make that recommendation that they sweep at least, twice a year in the parking lot.
Anything else from commissioners? Someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we would recommend approval for 215 Griffin Road. Is that the number?
218?
218 Griffin Road, with the following stipulations: that the 25-foot wetland boundary be put on the plans, that wetland markers are put every 50 feet on the proposed chain link fence, that any exposed material during construction is not kept on site, that the area is swept and cleaned after construction, and that moving forward it's recommended to sweep the parking lot twice a year. Did I miss anything? Kate, did you have anything else on the plan that you?
I think number 1 and number 2 on your staff map.
Yeah, there's still those items,
Yeah.
right?
So differentiating between temporary impacts versus permanent impacts, if there are temporary impacts outside of the permanent zone, and then stamping the wetland delineation and having it signed and dated by the New Hampshire wetland scientist that did it.
And those two stipulations.
All right, so motion made by Jessica. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Oliver. Discussion? I appreciate, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say, I appreciated the sidewalk just to see how, obviously developed this area already is. So you're really just switching out your base material, essentially. And I think, was there a fence there already?
There's not, no.
There's not. I think having that chain link fence is good for nothing. Trash as well blowing into the wetlands.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry I couldn't make the site walk again, and I appreciate your just kind of, as Sam said, changing your material, but it does seem like it would be nice for some water treatment to be considered if you do decide at some point to develop this parking lot more and do more to it.
Are we ready for a vote? All in favor? Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the State Wetland Bureau application for 5 Careers Cove, which they did request to postpone. So if someone would like to make a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to postpone 5 Couriers Cove Wetlands Bureau application to our July meeting.
Okay.
At the
Motion made by Barbara. Do we have a second?
And second it.
Second by Lynn. All in favor?
Great.
Other business. Hey, Stuart.
Okay, so there isn't any listed other business, but I did want to quickly mention the poll for the work session to talk about Article 10 edits and like get in a couple hours of just working on them and finalizing what we want to change. I just wanted to remind everybody that I sent out an email, maybe it was last week, with poll dates, mostly Mondays and Wednesdays, which I know have worked for us in the past better than other days. But if there's a better day of the week that works for you or a time, let me know. But so far I only have 4 responses, so I'm looking for a few more. And it's a poll that's directly in the email that I sent out, but I can resend that too. So I don't know, maybe I should take a poll right now of who filled it out already and who still has to fill it out. Poll on poll.
I think I filled it out. Yeah.
It didn't say who filled it out, which I realized was a mistake.
Oh, that's
My
funny.
doodle, my doodle
Yeah.
count
I did as well.
was like past the max, so I couldn't do a doodle poll. Yeah, okay, so we got a couple.
If that's accurate.
So any good days or times that work for you during the week, like Monday nights, is that okay? Wednesday nights?
Monday's probably better.
Mondays are better. Brian, how about you? Do Mondays.
I will complete that because it varies greatly by day.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
that's good to know. Stuart, how do you feel about Monday nights or Wednesdays?
Same as Brian.
Okay. Okay, yeah, no worries. All right, that kind of settles that. So maybe July or August or even September we can get around to that. And then there is another business item that I didn't put on here that I realized today I needed to do. And that's, I wanted to give you guys a very brief presentation on what's been happening with that New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Coastal Resilience Grant. So you may remember 2 years ago, I got this grant to do a wetland buffer restoration project out at a freshwater wetland and a tidal wetland. And it's due at the end of this month, so coming up on like kind of the last hurrah, but those are finally almost done. But I was going to show you guys a quick slideshow of just what we've been working on in terms of that project. But basically the idea was to find a tidal wetland and a freshwater wetland that needed some buffer plantings to help kind of restore the function of the wetland on city property as well. And a separate set of grants from the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership is actually funding like the purchase of plants and the install, so like the actual groundwork. But the DES grant is really all about outreach and engagement and knowledge about wetlands. So this grant in particular, let's see, how do I present? This grant in particular funded hiring a contractor to design planting plans for each site and also create land management plans, which includes a bunch of stuff like invasive species techniques, removal techniques and maintenance, how to maintain wetland buffers for like long term, things like that. But the whole real point of this was to create a repository of professionally done planting plans that are also really easy for residents to kind of pick up and replicate or take pieces of for their own properties. So we'll also be doing a page on the website that has these planting plans and has like basic advice on how to care for them and more education about wetland buffers. So that's kind of where the educational piece comes in.
Will it do the invasive, like how to manage too?
Yeah, so each site, Parterre Ecological is a landscaping company that's out of Massachusetts that we've seen for a couple projects. They did the land management plans, which is like a 20-page document for each site that has the existing conditions of the site, the existing invasives, and then goes into how to, specifically those types of invasives, how to like deal with them and how to get rid of them and how to maintain that property, and also the plants that are there existing that are wetland buffer plants, how to take care of those, how to add to them, things like that. It has specific site stuff, but then also more broad freshwater stuff, and then tidal stuff for the other tidal space. So they're a little bit specific to each site, but also provide like broad like planting guidance and invasive removal guidance, things like that. So it should be more applicable to what's around town. But the first site was the freshwater wetland site, which is on Banfield Road at the old teepee property, which is 850 Banfield Road. So it's this kind of triangular spot as you meet up with the new rail trail. So there used to be a house out here and a teepee over here, and then that land was sold to the city back in like 2018 or 2019. But there's a big wetland system out here that is connected to the Great Bog. It's connected to a couple ponds over here, and also the conservation properties that border this property. So we are doing a lot of plantings along the buffer edge here. And then for our tidal wetland site over on Pierce Island, which is a lot more visible, I should say that the Banfield Road site, this is going to be the future home of rail trail parking. So there's going to be a parking lot up here, or it hasn't been fully designed yet, but somewhere up here, sort of further away from the wetland, so that you can easily access the rail trail. So it's going to be more publicly visible in a couple of years, but kind of preparing for that. Pierce Island, right across from the pool. This is a site that has a lot of marsh elder, which is a protected rare species in New Hampshire. And just super visible to, all the kids going to the pool in the summer, all the parents dropping them off, tourists, things like that. And so for the 850 Banfield Road site, this is just an example of some stuff that's in the land management plan. They took stock of the native plant species that are out there, and that really informed what was in the planting list for each site, because they were taking, some things that are already there, but also adding in new plants to diversify and create pollinator and wildlife habitats. So Pierce Island, same thing. Pierce Island had a lot less diversity of plant species, but staghorn sumac was a big one, the marsh elder, some crabapple trees, black cherries. And this is just the overall plant list, which is huge, but I can read off a few. For Pierce Island, we're going to be putting in some black tupelos, black cherries, choke cherry trees. For shrubs, we're putting in serviceberries, sweet ferns, sweet gale, northern bayberry, beach plum, staghorn sumac, Virginia rose. For perennials, some milkweeds, seaside goldenrod, slightly more salt-tolerant stuff, but not all like completely salt-tolerant. So a little bit of a mix, and there's some overlap with species too on Banfield. So Banfield Road, we're doing more maples. So there were some silver maples already out there, red maples, black cherries, tamaracks, summer sweet, silky dogwood, winterberry, sweet gale, things like that, and more pieweeds and milkweeds, things like that. So this is kind of just the front cover of the land management plans that we've gotten so far, and soon this will be all up on the website before the end of this month. We're just slowly getting there. But land management plan, like I said, includes existing conditions of each site, an invasive species inventory, really general but also specialized invasive species plant management techniques, restoration planting recommendations. So for these sites, this isn't part of this grant, but for the other grants, we're planting them. And we're doing direct planting right through the grass to minimize soil disturbance. So we'll just be digging right through the sod. So we have some different types of planting techniques that limit soil disturbance in the management plans for kind of step-by-step guidance on how to plant, which is really helpful if people want to do it on their own. We have our recommended plant lists in there. We have restoration techniques, maintenance tips for long-term care and watering schedules, and sort of like an annual calendar of you should plant in this window, you should weed in this window, you should mow in this window, things like that. So that's really nice. Here's an example of our final planting plan for Banfield Road. It kind of just hugs, there's a lot of Phragmites out there right now on the sort of wetland edge that we're trying to take care of, but so we're planting this kind of elongated planting area that's really densely packed with a really diverse amount of plants and shrubs, but we're also leaving a strip in between the Phragmites and the plantings for mowing to try to keep that Phragmites at bay. So we gave a 10-foot like mower strip for our public works department to utilize. And then for Pierce Island, kind of similar, but a lot skinnier. Each site has around, like, I think we ordered like 200 to 250 plants for each site. This is a lot smaller, so it's going to be more densely packed. This is about a 1,500 square foot planting area, and Banfield Road is like 6,000 square feet. So they're going to be really, really tightly packed, but I think that means that they'll do really well in terms of growing up in between different pockets and preventing invasives from growing in. But yeah, pretty excited about that. My next steps for me for this grant is we're also putting signage at each site that's going to show like the planting plans and kind of like an existing condition photo. And it's going to have a little blurb about this is a wetland, this is why it's important to have a wetland buffer, and these are the kind of plants that go in this one, and these are the kind of plants that go in the Title one, things like that. So currently designing that, we got to order those, and they should be installed by the end of June, but sometime this summer. And then I also am finalizing the website, which is going to have all this information. And then I'm also designing some postcards, which I hope to order soon and potentially send out to all wetland and wetland buffer property owners, like I did a couple years ago with the update, or last year with the update. And that is it. But I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of, hey, don't worry, I'm still working on this. But it's coming to an end, and you'll maybe see it soon. Or technically, we're going to try to be planting all these the last week of June, so it's going to be like 2 weeks from now. But also, it's great to tell you guys in case, you know, people are like, oh my God, what's happening over that wetland buffer? Oh, it's just Kate planting stuff. So don't worry. But if anybody wants to come out.
Are you planting?
Yeah, well, actually, I did volunteer my time, so yes, I will be out there.
Plants.
Yeah, it's a lot of plants. But if anyone wants to come out and watch or join, it'll be June 23rd and 24th, which is like a Tuesday and Wednesday at each site. If you guys are interested, stop on by. Cool. But that's my update, and that's the end of other business.
Can I just ask, website, is that like a web page off the planning and sustainability homepage?
Yeah, so
Where's that gonna be?
So it's going to be exactly there on the planning page. It was going to be kind of the central focus on the Concom page, so that'll be like the first thing people can click on is caring for our wetland buffers is like going to be a link. Mm-hmm. So it'll be hosted on the web page. I'm thinking we'll need a lot of like QR codes and things to also make it easily findable for people that aren't always on the website. So that'll go on postcards and maybe on the educational sign too, just to link you there directly instead of having to find it.
Got it.
Kate,
Awesome.
this is awesome
Yeah.
project.
You guys like it? It's been really fun.
And you did a great job talking about it.
Good.
I was wondering about, well, two questions. One about maintenance over the long term, because I know, you know, having worked on projects, not exactly like that, but similar, that you go back 5-10 years later and, you know, they're kind of all overgrown, or somebody maintained them, like in Exeter, they kept cutting down the plants that, you know, everybody has planted and stuff. I have a question about that. And then also on outreach, if there are other opportunities, like it sounds like it's very thorough what you thought about doing, but also maybe some opportunities for more hands-on help with people, you know, to when you do the postcards or whatever, to maybe, I don't want you to have to do a workshop, but, you know, there could be like an opportunity for a presentation. This was really good, but it might be good for people to ask questions at some point.
That's a good idea.
And press too.
Yeah.
You could table outside Pierce Island Pool during swim lessons.
Yeah, just say, hey, go check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it might be best suited for when it's a little bit more grown in, to like host some like a session there. But that would be great to have like a maybe kind of like a press release there talking about the project, and we can also kind of release something in the newsletter too, or the city website. But I like the idea of like having a volunteer day there. Maybe once a year we can have a group of volunteers go out and help with weeding or cataloging plant like success and things like that. If that's something that maybe this commission, and we could put it on Nature Groupie and get some people. In terms of the maintenance, I know that we've talked about kind of how Public Works maintains our wetland buffers in the past, and these two sites are going to be pretty tightly, I think, watched by our department in terms of like care for the first year. And I think it is kind of falling to our department to maintain and care for it, and maybe with help from volunteers. But we plan to put markers out there and boulders to prevent mowing of the buffer. And we also are going to be talking to the group of Public Works employees that does mowing of our parks and our green spaces, to give them kind of the land management plan as like a guidebook for don't mow this, just do this. But in reality, they're really just going to mow the green spaces that are already around it and just completely avoid the buffers, and we'll probably do the weeding ourselves and things like that, just so nothing gets done incorrectly.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully it turns out all right, but so far, so good.
Yeah.
But we've gotten some awesome quotes for New England plants, like wetland-specific plants, that were way more affordable than I would have thought. So it's been going well. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want help with the planting day? Like, do you want to get like a Concom event?
Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, so we definitely know that the Pierce Island site is going to be a lot harder to do direct digging in. So some contractors were quoting us with augers, and we were like, we can't use any mechanical equipment. It just has to be shovels. So the company that we are going for actually doing the work is doing everything by hand with shovels, and they quoted for like a much longer period of time because they think it's going to be pretty tough out there. So same with Banfield, should be a lot easier. It's more wet out there. It's kind of soggy ground. But that'd be great to have as much help as we can get. I know a couple staff are going to be out there digging, so if you want to come and bring your own shovel, that would be awesome.
23rd.
Yep, it'll be Tuesday the 23rd and then Wednesday the 24th, with Thursday as like a backup day, which is the 25th.
Is like, are you gonna be at both sites on both days, or is it?
I think we're starting at Banfield on the first day. I'll have to double check, but once I figure that out indefinitely, then I'll send everybody kind of here's
Yeah.
what's happening. This is where we're meeting if you're
Yeah, that'd
interested in
that'd
coming.
be good.
Yeah.
You could put it on Nature Groupie too if you wanted more help.
Yeah, I think the person that's doing the planting is bringing a team of 7 or 8 people.
Okay.
So it'll be a good start, and then we'll just help out where needed, I think. And also I'm going out early in the morning with the contractor that did the landscape plan to actually go out and lay everything out and make sure it's in the right spot. So we might need help with that too, if that's something that people are interested in. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Perfect.
Can I wait? Maybe can I?